This discussion can be broken down into both discussions about supply chain and business opportunities, as well as specific jobs and career opportunities in the industry. So today, that is what we will be focusing on. And here is our agenda. We're going to start with welcomes and introductions. Because of the size of the group, I'm going to ask that folks put their name, title, and organization that they work with in the chat. This meeting will also be recorded and presented on our Maryland Offshore Wind web page and website, so folks can go back to this later. This presentation will also be shared with everyone after this meeting. So first, we're going to take a high-level look at the offshore wind market to gain an understanding of the supply chain and economic development opportunities that are available. So if you were with us yesterday, this slide might look familiar to you. The data displayed in front of you illustrates the offshore wind market pipeline with projects that have already been awarded offtake contracts to state mandates and planning targets. As of this spring, 12,300 megawatts or 12 gigawatts of offshore wind capacity has been awarded offtake contracts, meaning that they are either in their permitting, construction, or operation phase. As you can see, the capacity already awarded is greater than the combined state mandates and planning targets for 2030, but it is less than half the combined mandates and targets for 2035, sitting at a lofty 39 gigawatts of capacity as a goal. 13 state mandates combined equal to 50 gigawatts by 2050, but the additional planning target for offshore wind development by 5 states doubles this to the expected market pipeline, leading us to over 100 gigawatt trajectory by 2050. This data comes from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory's 2024 Offshore Wind Market Report, which was published last week and is linked in the bottom of that slide. So looking at this data and information, what does this mean? It means that as this market continues to grow, it continues to push demand onto our manufacturing and maritime industries, building up those industries and creating a resurgence in American-made production across the United States to meet the demands of this industry. It opens the door for immense opportunity for our supply chain and workforce to get involved. So looking at the offshore wind project pipeline. So this collection of maps is provided by the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. The following diagrams show the areas either already leased or intended to be leased. Together, these generate a pipeline of just shy over 81 gigawatts of offshore wind capacity. So state mandates and targets have the offshore wind market at a 100 gigawatt capacity trajectory, but BOEM's permitting process has us at 81 gigawatts. Either way, that is far above Biden's 2030, 30 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2030 and the state mandates of 50 gigawatts by 2050. So all of that information is well and good. Oh, someone said there's a little bit of feedback. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, sorry about that. We do operate in a cubicle environment here at the Maryland Energy Administration, so we do try to minimize our background noise. I appreciate your flexibility, and I hope that I am able to be heard and understood well. This meeting will also have a transcription that goes along with the recording, so you'll be able to hear what I say, and the recording will have closed captions as well. So let's get into, what does this all mean? All of that information about the pipeline is all well and good, but how are we actually going to scale up our supply chain and workforce to succeed in deploying all of this offshore wind capacity for the projects? So we're going to need to scale up the following categories of industries within the offshore wind market. So first and foremost, we need additional shipbuilding and maintenance businesses. These specialized shipping vessels are required for offshore wind installation, and maintenance of offshore wind projects, and there currently are not enough vessels to deploy the global offshore wind pipeline to lead our domestic pipeline. These specialty vessels are currently being rented to offshore wind developers. They're being rented out at a pretty penny of $250,000 a day. And to put that monetarily into perspective, it takes about 24 hours or one full day to install a single turbine, and an average project of commercial scale, so 1 gigawatt project, will have about 50 turbines depending on the size turbine that they use. So shipbuilding is definitely of a high need. So in addition, the general manufacturing and production capabilities that are needed to meet the goals of the industry are immense. The US has largely outsourced much of its manufacturing just generally, resulting in the transformation of places like Bethlehem Steel from its bolstering steel fabrication hub that it once was to it majorly being a distribution center. However, because of offshore wind, we're creating this resurgence in these American manufacturing and production, especially in general construction and steel fabrication. In addition to general manufacturing and production, we need things like staging and logistics. The sheer amount of acreage that's needed for a port location for the purpose of staging these large offshore wind component pieces is vast. These tier 1 manufactured pieces are too large to be transported via rail or truck. And so they need to be at a port location and able to be moved seamlessly from port location to the installation location. And lastly, of course, there is a need for folks who are able to actually provide the skills to both install, operate, and maintain these wind turbines. Within these manufacturing categories, there are 4 different tiers which are typically discussed. So when it comes to the tiers of manufacturing for offshore wind, it can be broken down into 4 different tiers in specificity for the offshore wind market. Tier 4 manufacturing folks are the ones who supply raw materials to the industry. This could be materials such as metals like copper, steel, and aluminum, as well as carbon fiber, concrete, or precious metals. Our Tier 3 folks are the ones who supply the subcomponent pieces. Subcomponent pieces are those such as motors, bolts, and gears. These are commonly available items that are combined into the subassembly pieces. Then moving up to Tier 2 are the subassemblers of these systems that have been specified for functions of the Tier 1 components. This could include subassemblies of numerous small parts, such as a pitch system for blades. Tier 2 manufacturers will directly be contracted with the Tier 1 suppliers. And finally, we get into our Tier 1 manufacturers. These are the ones who provide the finished components that are purchased by the offshore wind energy developer, such as the turbine blades, nacelles, foundations, or cables. Tier 1 suppliers will be contracted directly with the project developer. It is important to note that not every manufacturer in the state will have a contract directly with the project developer, and rather they will be supplying the tier above them with the necessary component pieces to proceed up that value chain until it reaches the Tier 1 stage as a finished component. So where will these industries and manufacturing opportunities be concentrated? Well, when it comes to the Tier 2 and Tier 1 manufacturing facilities, like I said earlier, they'll have to likely be located near a port location due to their size of some of these component pieces and the inability to transport them the conventional ways, such as rail or highway. Maryland Trade Point Atlantic has been the major port facility that has been examined to support the offshore wind industry in Maryland. US Wind has invested in Sparrows Point Steel, which is going to serve as US Wind's steel fabrication and monopile foundation facility. This is instead of the Port of Baltimore, as the Port of Baltimore is at capacity with its customers and space available. And like we said before, these component pieces are very large and need quite a bit of acreage. It's also important to note that the regional partnership the state has with its neighbors through the Smart Power Agreement. The Smart Power Agreement is the Southeast Mid-Atlantic Regional Transformative Partnership for Offshore Wind Energy Resources. It was established in 2020 by the governors of Maryland, Virginia, and North Carolina for the purpose of leveraging each other's strengths to create a cohesive supply chain and workforce that harnesses the economic opportunities of the region. And as an example of offshore wind related work that is happening outside of the state that will be benefiting the states, and a note just about how wide these jobs will spread, Nucor Steel in Kentucky has been contracted to produce steel plates for the Northeast offshore wind industry. They have the ability to produce much larger plates for monopiles, and in turn are able to reduce the project cost for the monopiles. We tend to see that our neighboring state partners just west of us, so like Kentucky, Pennsylvania, they have access to a lot of the space and acreage needed for manufacturing larger component pieces than states like Maryland might not have. This is just a note. So when it comes to the business community, what are the steps to get involved? What does the pathway look like? This is obviously a high-level pathway that's not specific, and this is intentional because each specific organization will need to assess their specific business needs. However, this is intended to provide some transparency and clarity to the business community about where to start. So the recommendations of where to start are to first assess your capabilities and opportunities. Look at your company's existing skills, products, or services. Look at how they could be applicable to the offshore wind sector. You can do this by identifying areas where things align, just going straight back to that 4-chart graph that I had before, which area does your business operations fit into? Then researching the various components of the offshore wind value chain and figuring out potential entry points for your business. The next step would be to network and building relationships. Attending your offshore wind symposiums, conferences, and trade shows, attending webinars such as this one, engaging in business-to-business meetings with other industry leaders or other organizations in your network, other tier 1, 2, 3, or 4 manufacturers also working in this space. It's also good to seek mentoring opportunities with developers, tier 1 and 2 companies. Depending on your business, it could be essential for you to pursue certifications, making sure that your business meets industry standards and regulations. Make sure you familiarize yourself with regulatory requirements and the environmental standards specific to offshore wind projects. Then look for ways to collaborate and form partnerships. Who are other stakeholders and players in the industry who you could partner with? What are possibilities for joint ventures, the companies that might complement your expertise? How can you leverage your strengths with other players in the industry? Then developing a long-term strategy, creating a comprehensive plan for your business's involvement in the offshore wind industry, setting clear goals and milestones for your company's entry and growth in the sector, and then reviewing and adjusting your strategy based on industry development and market feedback. So now that we have covered our business community, let's move into the workforce needs and opportunities of the industry. The U.S. Department of Energy estimates there will be approximately 80,000 offshore wind-related jobs created in the United States by 2030. This is expected to increase 125% to reach 180,000 jobs by 2050. And something important to note about this map is that the map encompasses the entirety of the United States. While some of these jobs will be concentrated at port locations and there will be immense economic development opportunities in Maryland, it's important to note that this is an all-hands-on-deck scenario, deploying 80 gigawatts of offshore wind, or the trajectory of 100 gigawatts of offshore wind, is no simple task, and it really does require the strength of our workforce to come together.
That's just going to be a lot more incentive. So hopefully that will be taken advantage
of. And to this point, there is actually a projected deficit of over 124,000 workers in the projected demand for the skilled workforce and our supply of that skilled workforce related to the offshore wind industry. In order to bridge this gap, it is essential that clear pathways into the industry be paved and communicated to our workforce. This has been something that the state of Maryland has been working on with different agencies, such as our close working relationship between the Maryland Energy Administration and the Maryland Department of Labor. The Maryland Department of Labor has a specific initiative, the Maryland Works for Wind Initiative, which began from a $23 million investment from the U.S. Department of Commerce. So what are the types of jobs available in the offshore wind industry? I've broken these career types down into 5 categories. We have planning and development, manufacturing and assembly, construction and installation, operations and maintenance, and support services. So when it comes to planning and development types of careers, these are the ones that are related to the developing of the project proposals, the site and assessment plan, and construction and operation plans that are required for permitting approvals. There are currently 15 projects that have been approved with state offtake agreements totaling over 12 gigawatts of offshore wind energy as of this spring. And as we saw from Bowen's mapping earlier in the presentation, there's a minimum of 81 gigawatt acreage potential in Bowen's leasing pipeline. There is a variety of career opportunities at all levels. However, in the planning and development side of this, offshore wind jobs have some of the highest degree requirements in the planning and development phase, with the majority of these requiring a bachelor's or master's degree. This is not true of every single phase. And it's not even true 100% of this one. There are opportunities to get involved in the planning and development side with just a high school diploma or GED. Some of these are related to things like field technician, survey technician, and environmental science technician. However, in order to move up in those career opportunities, a bachelor's degree is required. That is not true of all of the different job pathways within the offshore wind industry, as we will continue to discuss. It should be noted as well that these careers that are all mapped out on this slide and the next couple slides, they all come from the federal government, from the Department of Energy's wind career maps. The Maryland administration, in partnership with Virginia and North Carolina, is working on a supply chain and workforce gaps analysis of the region, and we hope to have updated information about exactly what types of careers and what the pathways are by the end of this fiscal year, or the end of this calendar year. So moving into manufacturing, these jobs will be dispersed across the tiers 1 through 4 manufacturing levels, with 85% of these direct jobs having an average salary of around $100,000. This is an estimation provided by NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Office. These well-paying jobs have some of the lowest degree requirements, with many opportunities available to anyone with a high school diploma or GED. There also tends to be a clear pathway to move up in the manufacturing management levels without a bachelor's degree, although there are still some senior positions that do require a bachelor's or master's degree, especially with those related to engineering. Similar to manufacturing, we have construction and installation. These jobs also have some of the lowest degree requirements, with the majority of opportunities available to folks with a high school diploma or GED as well. They also have some of the highest rate of transferability for their skills, knowledge, and certifications across different clean energy industries, such as solar, hydro, and geothermal. These jobs also provide pipelines to move into management positions without the need of bachelor's degrees, Although again, there are some higher positions similar to the manufacturing jobs where engineering positions may require a minimum of a bachelor's degree. So moving on to the operations side, it is fairly similar to construction and manufacturing, where there are opportunities to enter the industry with just a high school diploma or degree, but there may be specific certifications that are required for those positions specific to offshore wind construction and technology, such as the requirements to become a wind technician. An offshore wind substation technician might require specific certifications. However, folks may be able to enter these positions through apprenticeship programs, such as those available with some of our unions. And folks are also able to move up into management positions without needing an advanced degree. Although an advanced degree may be required for some positions, there is no indicated position, at least not by DOE, where a PhD would be required for any operations and maintenance position, making it a little bit more accessible than some of the other positions discussed on the last slides. And it should be noted that while our offshore wind projects typically have offtake contracts, meaning the contract with the state for the state purchasing that developers offshore wind energy, that might be a 20-year contract. However, these offshore wind turbines are being manufactured to be able to last up to 100 years with proper maintenance. This is intended to increase the sustainability of these projects. These projects are also made with a cradle to grave focus, where their life cycle of how they are going to be maintained and what's going to happen at their end of life is taken into consideration for the purpose of them being able to be maintained and last for a long, long time. And lastly, we have our support service folks. These folks sometimes get left out of the equation, but they are some of the ones providing the most essential services to the industry. These are folks providing training, education, research, and messaging to both the industry and communities. The majority of these positions will require an advanced degree. However, there are still pathways for folks to get involved without having an advanced degree. These jobs, however, specifically those within research and development, they're providing some of the most crucial information to the industry that is going to help us reduce the cost and increase efficiency and resiliency of these offshore wind projects. So putting this all together, how should someone approach the discussion of getting involved in the industry? Well, this will require focusing on the following steps: awareness and education. Start by, building your awareness of the opportunities in offshore wind. Attend things like career outreach events, industry panels, and supplier days. Explore career maps to understand available jobs, certification requirements, and career pathways in the industry. Then training and skill development. So pursue relevant trainings. So for students enrolling in offshore wind programs at universities or community colleges, we are seeing some of these opportunities pop up within the state through things like the Maryland Works for Wind initiative, as well as the Maryland Energy Administration's offshore wind grant programs, which we'll focus on in a moment. So for professionals, when it comes to training and upskilling, considering professional programs that help transition existing skills into offshore wind specific industry skills is going to be of essential benefit to you all. And then for our trade workers, looking into incumbent worker training programs that focus on reskilling trade, constructions, and maritime workers for the offshore wind industry. Then moving into certifications and safety trainings, figuring out which certifications are going to be best suited for you and what you want to do in the industry. Completing basic trainings for general construction, fabrication, electrician, or manufacturing industries is a way to get involved and know that you'll have a spot in the industry. Then pursuing additional certifications specific to offshore wind, such as deep sea welding or wind energy technology certifications, are also going to be beneficial to getting involved. Then, like everything, networking and industry engagement, building your connections is going to be very helpful. So things like attending offshore wind symposiums, conferences, and supplier days, but also participating in mentoring programs offered by developers. A lot of developers have workforce development initiatives through BOEM's process, leasing process. Developers are able to get a 12.5% credit for what they purchase the auction, what they purchase their lease area for through their auction, if they have certain commitments to workforce development training.
Okay.
And then outside of this, and finally, you'll get into the job search and application. So exploring various roles across the different industries. Research institutions, government, and nonprofit will be beneficial as well. Okay, so all of this information is fine and good, but what are the resources and support that is actually going to help the workforce and business community engage in the industry in a way that is valuable and effective? So in Maryland, we have 3 agencies that provide funding opportunities that can directly benefit the establishment of a business entering in the industry and create educational opportunities for individuals. Most famously, and like I've alluded to a couple times, the Maryland Works for Wind initiative. This is led by Special Grants Administrator Chanel Viator, who may actually be on the call right now. This initiative began with a $23 million grant from the Good Jobs Challenge, which was led by the U.S. Department of Commerce. And they actually have an active request for proposals where they have an additional $4.7 million available for offshore wind related workforce development projects and initiatives. Through this program, they have 21 different subcontractors. Thank you, Chanel. I see she put information related to Maryland Works for Wind in the chat. So through this initiative, the Department of Labor has established this network of over 20 different sub-awardees. So some of these folks are already established workforce training centers. Some of them are community colleges who are building and developing offshore wind-related curriculum in their schools now. So outside of the Department of Labor initiative, the Maryland Department of Commerce has a Maryland Manufacturing 4.0 program. This program isn't specific to offshore wind, but it is vital and necessary to manufacturers, and it can be applied to offshore wind or folks in manufacturing who want to engage in offshore wind. So the Manufacturing 4.0 grant program provides grants to small and mid-sized Maryland manufacturers to invest in Industry 4.0 related technologies, machinery, robots, and digital business practices for the purpose of helping them remain competitive and driving growth. So companies that invest in Industry 4.0 technologies can benefit from increased productivity and sales, cost saving, retention of employees, and other things. 4.0 related technologies are considered the smart manufacturing technologies. This program is run by, I believe, Ben McLaughlin with the Department of Commerce, who also may be on this call. So next we have a couple opportunities offered by the Department of Energy. First and foremost, the Department of Energy offers an annual collegiate wind competition. This is hosted by the American Clean Power Association. They also have this offshore wind national and regional research and development funding opportunity that has $50 million available for offshore wind investments, targeting 6 different topic areas. These 6 different topic areas include floating wind applications, fixed bottom foundation types, environmental protections, a focus on offshore wind development in the Great Lakes, a focus on a floating offshore wind center of excellence program. There is already an existing Offshore Wind Center of Excellence program that was done previously. This one will be specific to floating. And there will be a focus on weather conditions, specifically a concern about lightning, and just making sure that when we are actually creating these turbines, that we are creating them with protections that make them resilient assets. Then when it comes to the Maryland Energy Administration, the MEA offers a number of programs underneath our offshore wind grant program portfolio. We have a supply chain investment program. Under this program, last year we had a Maryland offshore wind market entry planning area of interest. That was where folks could receive a $25,000 investment in getting and retaining a consultant to help them develop their specific businesses offshore wind marketing plan to help them understand and engage in the industry, figure out which steps they need to take to engage in the industry. This program has been moved into the Oceanic Networks coaching program. This is offered under a number of initiatives that the MEA offers to the Oceanic Network through a grant we have with the Oceanic Network. In addition to this, the MEA has a number of energy efficiency related programs that are available to our commercial recipients. So anything related to increasing the productivity of your manufacturing or fabrication or any type of facility while reducing your energy costs. And then lastly, we have this program called the Open Energy Program. The Open Energy Program is a program where if we have, if our grant programs don't provide the avenue that you are looking for a grant opportunity, you can submit a proposal to the Open Energy Program. And if the initiative furthers the state of Maryland's goals for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and providing a more resilient and affordable energy market for Marylanders, then it could be considered an awarded funding. Moving on to different resources, our industry associations and networks. So the Maryland Energy Administration has a partner initiative with the Oceanic Network. The Oceanic Network used to be the offshore wind, the business network for offshore wind. And through a grant award with MEA, the Oceanic Network has developed the following. They have developed a supply chain connect portal. They have developed an offshore wind coaching program. They have developed offshore wind educational and networking opportunities, and they host the International Partnering Forum. Some of these initiatives have scaled up from what MEA initially invested with their grant award, but some of these initiatives, if any of them are focused specifically on Maryland, for example, the Oceanic Network has an Offshore Wind 101, but they also have an Offshore Wind 101 specific to Maryland. Those specific to Maryland initiatives are the ones funded by us at MEA, and they take a deep dive into what is going on in the Maryland market. And then additionally, we have a list of our offshore wind grant recipients. The folks listed here on this bulleted chart have active projects related to offshore wind. And if you or your constituents and stakeholders are curious about folks who are working in the offshore wind space, this is a list that you can start with to look into what's going on with offshore wind. Some of these are overlap with the Maryland Works for Wind initiative and are building on some of the initiatives that they have started with the Maryland Works for Wind initiative. So some of them may be familiar to you, some maybe not. We have folks like Jane Addams Resource Center located in Baltimore, also known as JARC Baltimore. We have the Baltimore Green Justice Workers Cooperative. It says corporation, but it is cooperative. That is a typo. Lynn, if you're on this call, I apologize. We have the Oceanic Network. We have the Maritime Institute of Technical and Graduate Studies, also known as MITAGS. We have the Archon Training Center. We have the University of Maryland. We have Chesapeake College. We have the Warwick Community College, Johns Hopkins University, and Mighty Waves. Now moving on to future outlooks. This goes back to the first slide we showed, which is looking back at the offshore wind industry, the growth pipeline, and what is going on, not only today, but in the coming years. So there is a long-term project pipeline that provides a very positive market outlook for a pretty stable supply chain and workforce to grow and sustain itself. The offshore wind project pipeline is growing exponentially. Like I said before, we already have 12 gigawatts already permitted with offtake, and 15 projects already have offtake agreements. This again, if you see the red line on either graph, these projects and the capacity is intended to increase exponentially over the next 2 decades. This provides immense opportunities, not just now, but putting in those frameworks for our future generations to continue this industry. And with that, I will take any questions that folks have. I thank you all for attending and participating. This presentation will also be sent to everyone at the end of this webinar. And this recording and transcript will be available on our website. Karen, Michelle?
Good morning, and thank you for an amazing presentation. I'm so excited. Thank you. You had mentioned a few slides back about the analysis that your team is doing that should be done by the end of the calendar year around workforce opportunities. Can you talk a little bit about, more about that and what it will include?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Karen Michelle. So the study that we're funding, it is in partnership with our Smart Power group. So with ourselves, Maryland, North Carolina, and Virginia. Delaware is actually also participating, although they're outside of our Smart Power group. We found it to be essential that their market was looked at and their workforce was looked at. This is because our regional, our outside workforce, we have folks from Delaware who work in Maryland. We have folks from Maryland who work in Virginia and Delaware, and that's happening across the region as well. The purpose of the study, it's going to be a 2-phase study. We do have some drafted content from them already available to us internally, but we will have a published study that will be 2 phases. So one will be focused on our commercial industry, focused on the supply chain. Where are gaps? Where are our strengths? We ask them to do a basic SWOT analysis before they go into the actual study. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then figuring out how we can leverage each other's strengths. So SWOT analysis for each state, and then figuring out how we can leverage the strengths of each of our neighboring states to overcome some of the challenges and barriers. And we are open to, the suggestions and methodologies that NREL recommends to us. Things like, it could be that Maryland has the best opportunities for things like laying down materials, or our ports might be better. Maybe Virginia's ports might be better, but our workforce programs could be better. Our investment in offshore wind education has been actually the most significant in our entire region. So that is a major strength of us. And this study will really be looking into what that breakdown is, where our workforce is prepared and where our workforce needs help, that kind of thing. And it's really intended to be a way for us as, members of our energy offices and our departments of commerce to understand what kinds of programs are going to be essential to put out into the communities and what kinds of networks we can instill and how we can create more of those connections, not only within Maryland, but within our neighboring partner states, because we see this as an opportunity where there is a lot of benefit in collaborating.
Very excited. Thank you so much. Look forward to that report at the end of the year. Like
Absolutely.
Like a holiday gift, but different. Yeah.
Exactly. Are there any other questions from folks? Okay, well, if there are no other questions, actually, I see myself is listed here. My colleague, Layla Horef, should also be listed here as a point of contact. Layla, would you mind putting your contact information in the chat box so people can reach out to either of us should they have any questions? Thank you. So as I said, this presentation will be shared with all of you. It will also be posted on our website. Our communications person who works on our web edits is actually on vacation right now, so it may be next week after the holiday that these are up on our webpage with the recordings. But should you have any additional questions about any of the information presented here, you may reach out to myself or Layla, and we'd be happy to advise you the best we can. There will be the third webinar of our 3-part webinar series tomorrow morning. You can register the same way that you registered for this one if you're interested. It will all be on a deep dive of our offshore wind grant programs, what we have available, how you apply for them, what our evaluation criteria is, and what our timeline is for getting grants out the door. So with that, I will give you all about half of the time back. And I thank you all for participating and engaging in this webinar. All right, thanks everyone. Take care.
Thank you.